every pony, and welcome to Brony Spotlight, where we look at the best of what the Brony community can create. My name's Fedora Brony, and today we are diving back into the world of fanfiction. I know lately I've been doing a lot of songs, but the reason for that is that I am a musician by trade. I mean, music is my cutie mark, so it's easy for me to pick apart. However, I have grown to love fanfiction over time, and the stories they can tell with no limits to genre or maturity. There are stories ranging from harmless and very show-based to alternate universe and very graphic. Today, I'm going to give you an example of something that is on the more mature side of things. Today, we're spotlighting Hard Reset by, and I apologize in advance if I get this name wrong, but Eakin. And in case you don't believe me on the graphicness, here's the cover image. Now, if you're still here, let me ease your worries by saying that this story is not all graphic and gore. There's actually a lot to like about it. First, let me give you a brief synopsis of the story to give you an idea of what we're talking about. The story is told from the perspective of Twilight, who is in Canterlot looking over the spells in the restricted archives of the Canterlot Library. She attempts a spell thought up by Starswirl the Bearded, and it promptly blows up in her face. After which, Twilight and Spike decide to go have some lunch out in Canterlot, but as this happens, a changeling invasion begins, and long story short, this leads to Twilight's death. However, that's just the beginning, because it turns out that the spell Twilight cast has placed her in a time loop, where after she dies, she returns to the point where she casts the spell. So, the rest of the story is basically Twilight living and dying multiple times to try and overcome the time loop and thwart the changeling invasion. However, as the story progresses, Twilight finds out about numerous things that she must overcome, from saving her friends to the elements of harmony themselves. This story may sound bizarre, but the elements of the story really come together and really kept me invested. Plus, it's only 6 chapters long, which means the story didn't overstay its welcome, and that makes it easy to read through. Twilight herself was a very crucial part to my enjoyment to the story. It's told in the first-person perspective of Twilight, so we see exactly how she thinks and feels through each situation and how she handles it. This helps not only to understand the thoughts Twilight has, but also means that we learn about what's happening just as Twilight is. It's also worth noting that, in my opinion, it takes real skill to tell a story effectively in the first person, because it requires an understanding of the character on the deepest level to speak the way people expect them to speak. Though the truly enjoyable part is watching Twilight's descent into madness, and from there we get to enjoy some dark comedy, from her exploits in the time loop after she goes mad, and how Twilight was able to overcome certain obstacles through the use of trial and error. A personal favorite section was how she claims that you should not try to perfect making explosives with common cleaning supplies through trial and error, because it hurts a lot. However, even after she descends into madness, I found myself still rooting for her, and her actions didn't really strike me as terrible, out-of-character actions, but a result of her deteriorating mental state. I felt sorry for her more than anything. Regardless of what she had done, I wanted to see Twilight get out of the loop and save the day as usual, even as everything seems to get in her way. Heck, the more I read, I was getting more and more curious about the time loop and what it really was, and why certain things were happening. Needless to say, I was invested through curiosity and sympathy for Twilight, and that isn't a bad thing at all. There's something to be said for someone who can evoke sympathy without it being forced, and Eakin pulled that off in my opinion, as well as created an interesting concept that seems entertaining and plausible as far as cartoon horses go. However, the other thing that impressed me was how well Eakin was able to believably write Twilight's descent into madness. This again goes back to how Eakin understands Twilight as a character. The opening shows off that he can successfully write Twilight normally, and this means that we, the readers, know that actions taken after the intro are driven by Twilight's reaction to what's happening around her, instead of a change in personality due to a lack of character knowledge. And the progression of events make the changes in Twilight seem believable, instead of 1 second Twilight acting normal, and the next she's going on a bloody rampage. Finally, the way it all comes together in the end also is a real good highlight of the story, but that's all I'm going to say to avoid spoiling it. Just know that it is a heartwarming moment, and for those of you who are more sadistic, there is an alternate ending. This story spawned a few sequels, which were pretty good, though they may get a little convoluted in its plot. Mine's out of the gutters, every pony. If you thoroughly enjoy the first one, the sequels will be enjoyable, but for me, the first one was the best, and that made the others fall short in my eyes. However, its latest sequel, Changing Lives, has been going very well, and it makes every bit of it worth it. Overall, this is a very quick story that really keeps you invested. As a standalone, it's really a worthwhile read. However, this is a disclaimer. There are more mature themes that are at play, and there is a particular scene where things get, steamy. But none of it is executed poorly, and it fits the story very well. Also, watch out for the alternate ending if you aren't prepared. It's probably one of the creepiest things that I've read. I highly recommend this story to anyone who has experience with fanfiction and enjoys a little madness. For now, though, my name's Fedora Brony, and this has been Brony Spotlight.